Yeah, thank you very much for being here and for listening to me. Unfortunately, I have to excuse my colleague Sabina Relic, who wanted to come from Mercedes-AMG, because as the title says, designing collaboration, what we really wanted to show, or what I want to show today, is how we tried, and I think we also managed to use design in a way to collaborate between two very different companies. Who of you has heard before of SAP? Almost everyone. So it's a big software company from Germany. Let's say not typically known for design, but very much aware of this fact and working hard to change that perception. And who of you has heard of Mercedes-AMG? Okay, also very good. So I will not talk too much about that. Oh, this doesn't work yet. Oh. There? No? It's the problem with PDFs. Anyways, I wanted to introduce myself. I can do that without a slide. So my name is Moritz Gekeler. I work at a team that's called the Design and Co-Innovation Center. We're a new team, or now 2 years, but it still feels pretty new, at SAP. And we are, as I said, trying to change the perception, the perception of SAP being a not design-driven company. I personally am really hard trying to get myself on Twitter, so let's connect there. And as I say, my team also has this nice Twitter name called SAP Designs, because that's what we do now, even though you won't believe it, but it's really, SAP has really embraced design very much. It all started in 2000, I think 4 or 5, when Hasso Plattner, one of the founders, brought design thinking to SAP. And for the last years, design thinking kind of moved into SAP. And now SAP also realizes that beyond design thinking and beyond putting nice, beautiful post-its on the wall, you also need design doing. And not only our team is doing that, but also other teams. And it's really a growing momentum right now. And it's a very exciting time to be there, actually. So I personally am not a designer, not officially. I did a PhD at a design school at the HFG Karlsruhe, but I'm more kind of a process nerd. So the disclaimer for this presentation is it's going to be a process presentation. There will be many pictures of people staring at post-its. And if you don't like process presentations, then please already leave now. And as you know, processes are never that nice and beautiful and organized and structured as we hope them to be. So this process presentation is highly sugar-coated. So please enjoy that. I talked already a little bit about my team, or our team. This is the Design and Co-Innovation Center. We have colleagues in Heidelberg. That's the biggest part, not in Walldorf, as you might think, but in Heidelberg, in what we call the App House, a very nice collaboration space. We have colleagues in Palo Alto, and we are 7 or 8 here in Berlin. As I said, we try to change the perception of SAP in terms of design, not only when it comes to software and software experience, but also when it comes to space. This is the nice app house in Heidelberg I was talking about. So if you step by Heidelberg, try to go there. It's on the, what's it called? Landroute. Is it Landroute? A former tobacco company area in the middle of the city, right next to the train station. And our aim as a team is to really collaborate very intensively with customers in order to understand not only the needs of the managers or the needs of the IT people at a customer, but really to understand the needs of the people who will be using the software. Today, this morning, someone said it's a great opportunity to be in the B2B business because there no one knows anything about design, basically, and no one knows anything about the people they're designing for. And that's something we also always find when we work with customers. Because usually as SAP, you work with the IT department, so you have your good contacts, you have relationships and so on. So you go to the IT department, they say, hey, let's make this cool design project. And then we say, okay, but can you please bring us in contact with the people who are going to use the software? And they're like, no, that's our kind of property. We don't give you direct access, otherwise you will show them prototypes, and then they think they will get this. So no. So we are working very hard on this. And the project I'm going to speak about is a very good example of the opposite behavior. Unfortunately, as I said, Sabina is not here today. She is the product owner at AMG, which is already a very strange constellation, because the product owner usually, or at least that's what I knew or thought I knew about agile development, the product owner sits with the development team, is part of the development team. In this case, we have a product owner at SAP, and we have her being the product owner from the side of AMG. And that's already a big sign, because that means we work so close together that we really exchange all the time. She would have been here and would have talked all about this great company, what they do, numbers, I don't know. I don't know anything about it, and officially I'm also not even allowed to, probably not even to show this picture, but to talk about numbers. I'm not a part of AMG, so I thought I would show you a short video for all those of you who don't know AMG yet, so just to get a little bit of a feeling what AMG is. So please, could we have the video? Just, yeah. So what you can see from this video is very much the attitude that is dominant at this company. It's a really great, very much engineering-driven, very much innovation-driven company. They produce high-speed luxury cars, and they are really, really, really successful. They are growing like crazy. And that's also one of the reasons why we came into this whole topic, because they were at a point where they want to grow further, but they realized that the traditional tools they're using and the traditional way how they're collaborating doesn't live up to the challenge to do this. So the slightly euphemized design challenge that actually we formulated afterwards to incorporate everything into one sentence is, how might we design a collaborative planning tool, which is very important, a collaborative planning tool, because at AMG they have changed their way of production, of developing cars. They have created small teams, a little bit like we heard before, small cells, you could also call them, that work within a company and are in charge of specific parts of the car. So there's a team for brakes, there's a team for I don't know, all the leather parts like seats and stuff, and there are many teams for different things, and they produce the parts for all the cars that leave AMG. And these teams are really working like little startups within the company, because they have engineers, they have procurement people, they have logistics people, they have quality managers, and they have what they call competence teams, that's the name of the teams, a coordinator. So these people have to collaborate, and these people have to collaborate across cells or across team boundaries. So it's very multidisciplinary. What I personally always like, I also worked, before SAP, I worked at the School of Design Thinking in Potsdam, and this whole notion of being multidisciplinary in design and design thinking is very close to me. But still, with this collaboration, you have the problem that you need transparency, because this is a very long process. You build a car over 3 or 4 years, and not only your team has to know where you are, but also the whole company has to understand where you are. And as I said, AMG is doing well, so they want to have growth. They want to have still or even more quality that you know. So the slightly standardized process that we follow, is that as strange as it is here? No. We have, at the Design and Co-Innovation Center, we have, maybe I should talk a little bit about who's working there. So there are people like me who have a background more in facilitation, design thinking, coaching, moderation, all that stuff. Then we have the biggest part of our team is actual designers, visual designers, interaction designers, and so on. And then we have also quite some people who are SAP, I don't want to call them nerds, but SAP oldies who are at SAP for like 10 or even more years, know SAP from within and outside, and have very close connections also to customers. And we are together, working together in a, call it design thinking way. We work creatively together, we work in mixed teams together, and we do this also with our customers. So it's always helpful to have something like this, like a visualization that you can show your customer and say, look, it's very easy, we just go this step and then we do this and then we do this. That's why you need such a standardized presentation. We have these 3 major parts: discover, design, deliver. And the great thing about this project was that actually, which is not always the case, the discover part was really big. So as I said, there will be some people staring at Post-its on the next pictures. As I said, developing a car is a process, at least at AMG, is a process of something between 3 and 4 years. What they actually do is they have the cars, usually, there are some cars that have been really originally created by AMG, but usually they take the Mercedes cars and make them faster and so on. So for us as designers, but also, and that's the important part, also for the IT department at AMG, it was really a tough challenge, first of all, to understand the process. And in this presentation, I also want to show you a little bit the methods we use. This one, for example, which was really kind of the first day, literally the first day that we were involved in the project. We called it Lord of the Milestones. And we created this little story where people could place their milestones. And it was like, I don't know, in the first workshop, I think 20 people or so collaborating and really putting their milestones, the things that they have to do in the process of creating a car, on the table. And you see these nice, oh, I have to point here, the nice diamonds. Those were the milestones, of course. And then on this picture, you can't really see them, but there are also walls that prevent you from reaching those milestones, and there are keys that you have to use in order to open doors. So we created this whole universe of a story to help them to tell the story of their process. And this was the first start, which could have gone really wrong, but fortunately, AMG is really a really open and sometimes also crazy company. They embraced it completely, and everyone was happy in the beginning to really work like this, also in a playful way together. And it worked very well to really have this map of the process. So in the process, standardized process I showed you before actually starting to understand and starting 360-degree research and trying to learn about the needs and so on of your users, you should do scoping. In our project, we did a little bit later, which is maybe a learning that you could take to your projects. Don't do scoping afterwards, do it first. But it's also here, it's very important. We used the game plan, you probably know, which is a very useful tool to visualize your process planning and your project planning, because it helps you to align behind one vision. What are we going to achieve in our project? Where do we want to go? This shows a little bit how we collaborated all the time. As I said, AMG was and is very open to let us interact with their people. So here on the left, you see one of the engineers really showing us their tools, what they are using right now, showing what works. And we did, I think, 12 in-depth interviews with people, like, as I said, from the different roles, engineers, procurement, and so on. Within these interviews, we did normal interviews in the beginning for 1 hour, and then we had another hour with them, drawing or mapping their user experience of today, and also where their pain points are today, so where the challenges are. And that was really helpful for them. It was very strange in the beginning, using Post-its, standing instead of sitting there, and interacting, but it helped a lot to show them directly what they came up with. So we had 10 or 15 of these, we called them wallpapers, and put them in our office, and from these we kind of synthesized the process that we understood that they have in their company. And the whole project was set up in a way that we had, I think, if not daily, then weekly collaboration sessions with the core team at AMG. But we also had bi-weekly or monthly sessions with actual users who were really involved and who we would always show them back what we were doing. Not only with prototypes and showing them, look, this is our idea, but already with the research results, we went back to them and said, look, that's what we understand, that's the process that we understood, and so on. Here's one picture of how we did this. On the left, right, you see one colleague from AMG, and that's also a very interesting thing of this project. Usually, as I said, we work with the IT department. He's from the process management or internal process organization at AMG. So there was really a collaboration not only going on in between us, the design team from SAP and the IT organization, but also with users and other stakeholders at the company. We synthesized their process into the 3 to 4 years. We synthesized it into 3 roles. Actually, we had, I think, something like 10 personas, but we kind of concentrated on these 3 and 3 main phases. And that was also interesting because usually they are used to process mappings, of course, but our 3 phases were concepting phase, detailing phase, and task force phase. Because that's actually the process that they often go through, because there's so much, as I said before, engineering-driven and so much innovation-driven, they also react to market changes very fastly. So in the end of the 3 years, it can happen that they change the car completely because they learned that a competitor makes another car and so on. So that was really, we had, at some point, we had a nickname for this company. We called them the impossible company, because we were thinking it's not possible that you work for 3 to 4 years and then change everything, but they can do it. And that's also the very interesting experience for us. It was also what they expected from us. So it was always also like the video you saw, the whole project was like this, but it was great fun. Maybe a little excurse. I talked before about the app house. This project was, of course, AMG is from Falterbach near Stuttgart, and our team is usually, the bigger part is based in Heidelberg. So I had the challenge and the fun to travel to Stuttgart almost every week. And actually, in the design thinking theory, or design theory, always talk about space and how space is important. It really is important. And it's not only important that it's flexible and you have whiteboards and so on. So it's important to have what we called a little bit the war room. You have a room where your project stays and where your Post-its as long as they do stick on the wall, because that really helps you to really live in your data and live with the stuff that you learn. As I said before, we called the project the Wallpaper Project. SI Labs before also talked about how they used to print out the processes all the time. This was a project where we wanted to calculate it at some point, how many kilometers of paper we actually printed out. It was all about these long 3-year processes, so we had all these maps of processes that but actually always help you to collaborate, because otherwise, if you have it in a computer, if you have it on a beamer, you cannot interact with it. When we came to the end of what we call discovery phase, what helped us a lot was visual synthesis. So, as I said, we did the typical things like personas and process maps and so on. But at some point, maybe it was after some beer even, we had the idea to visualize the main topics, the main challenges that we have found as little cartoons. And you can see here on the picture how these cartoons evolve. And you see also where it says Wünsche, the wishes and the needs and the pain points that we kind of collected. Those were more or less clusters of topics that we found when we went there. But we drew these little pictures and we showed these in a little bit nicer format to the users and to the stakeholders. And since it was so funny, or like a cartoon, they really loved it. It was really like some topics were really tough. So for example, we were talking about how this agile and engineering-driven culture can also put stress on the employees, because if you change everything last minute, this, of course, needs some work to be done. And we were able to visualize it in a way that even the management who's actually responsible for this behavior could relate to, and that they could say, yeah, okay, maybe you have a point there. And as you see this little Venn diagram in the middle, one thing that we also realized, and where this whole holistic, very qualitative approach really works, is we found out that it's not only about software. I mean, it's for designers, it's a given, but it was really important also to show to the customer, look, you come to us, we are SAP, we're a software company, we build your software, but your challenges are not only rooted in software. Maybe there will be some software helping you to get over the challenges, but not only software will solve the problem. Like the organizational culture that is changing, as I said, they introduced this new model of collaboration, I think 1.5 years before we started, or 1 year before we started. So it was clear that, of course, not everything went so smooth yet, but it was also important to make it clear that the software can help to go on this journey towards more participation and more collaboration, but there has to be also some other processes going on. So the real process, as I said, we did the scoping, we did a lot of research. Oh yeah, and there may be a little interesting story. At SAP, design thinking, as it's called, has been implemented over the last, as I said, I don't know, 10 or 8 or 9 years, and it's really a big thing at SAP. Many people apply design thinking. Many teams have their own processes, and actually I think that's a great thing, that everyone does it in their own way. One challenge that is still there, at least from a perspective of a design team, is that design thinking is labeled as a workshop format. So you do a 1-day or a 2-day workshop and you're done. You have your solution, you have post-its on the wall, so it's done, the design is done. So also in this project, we had to do quite some work to ensure that we go away from just having workshops to really living kind of a different mindset and living a different working culture. And we did have workshops at the point. So we had, as I said, these research workshops. We had synthesizing workshops, sometimes with users, sometimes just in the core team, and so on. We almost had a workshop every week, but it wasn't only about a workshop. But one workshop that was really important for us was at this point in the ideation phase, because again, we invited many different stakeholders, many different future users to help us and to create their vision of what the product should actually do and what they expect from the product. And they were actually drawing wireframes and having ideas of what could be implemented and what would be nice, and having this chatting function and this and that and this. It was great. It was a very intense but very nice experience to see how they liked to be involved and how they liked to be asked and to have the feeling to be understood also. Of course, there are also some challenges with that, because if you then decide later in the project that the chatting function is really expensive and you don't want to do it, you have to explain again. So that's the big thing about collaboration and participation. You have to have good reasons in the end if you drop one of the ideas that your users or your co-designers, if you want to call them that, had in the beginning. Of course, we did redefine the process. We did some classical process diagram, and then very importantly we did these iterations. So as I said, in the left you see the first wireframes that they had. Some of them we kind of translated or redid them in order to have them a little bit more clear. Then we made, with Axure, we made several click dummies and found very interesting things. So one concept was that we split the screen like it's sometimes in video software, where you have a video on top and then you have like a sound on the bottom. And this was our concept. This was the whole idea for everyone, and basically everyone agreed on it. But then we found out it's actually blocking us from using the space wisely, because if you have the things that were on top were important at one point in the process, but they were not important later, and you would have always this stuff up there that you don't need anymore. So we had to change it, and again, we had to explain it to everyone, basically, why we changed it. But you had this nice thing, why do you change it now? And that's difficult, but it's also important, because this way, really the people are on board and they like the thing already while it's developing. The colleagues from AMG even told us that some people asked their managers to sign up for our project. They wanted to participate, which is kind of, at least for my role, the best compliment, because it's, I think, in the role of a, as I said, in this project, I was a little bit like a process facilitator. It's also about entertainment, so you have to get the people involved and have to try to at least give them something that they like. And of course, on the lower side, you see also first iterations of the visual design, which is also interesting if you work with companies that are not yet so close to design, let's call it that, or like software design, interaction design. Visual design equals design. We heard that also this morning. And the idea of iterating the visual design and having different steps and different ideas and trying things out. Here we had the idea to have it on a dark screen, which is interesting. It's very different, and they were kind of reluctant and asking why and so on. And we found out in the end it doesn't work, but it was important for us as a step to understand the right design. And now it's the magic process, because many design processes stop actually at this point validation. You have ideas, you create prototypes, and you test them, but then what happens? And we are a software company, so of course we have a lot of developers also in the company. In our team, we don't have developers. And I have to say, of course, in such a big company, also that sometimes poses challenges to collaborate, to understand each other, to have a developer mindset and a designer's mindset coming together. The very good thing in this project, which is also not always the case, also SAP, of course, is very much on the way of learning these things. The developers were included very early on, so they were already in the beginning trying to bring in their ideas and having their mindset, bringing this to the table. What helped us a lot was that the customer actually also wanted to work in an agile way. So we used user story mapping, and I said before, we had these personas, so they helped us a lot. And one thing that was really great was really using, again, the visual way of thinking helps a lot, using storyboards that visualize what the software will do, maybe sometimes even without seeing what the screen actually shows. There's not even yet a concept of the UI or the actual functions, but it's more a concept of, yeah, like a process, like a fairy tale that tells the story of the future where you can use software in order to get this or that job done. And of course, while we did this also at the same time. So we had stories for new parts of the software being tested, and actually that's what colleagues right now are still doing, while we already also had first click dummies and then also first software to actually test with the users in very concrete situations. This presentation, I said it before, is about process. So I don't show you much about the software actually. One thing that we were very happy about is that I wasn't there, but I heard that the CEO of AMG said that this solution will rock the IT automotive world. The thing why I think he might have said that, if he really said it, is that the solution will really create collaboration, that these teams can work collaboratively and can plan more or less in real time. And that's something that is very new, especially in a very traditional field like the automotive world. Here are some pictures of some actual so-called users, actual people who were involved in the project. What was really nice was that they, as I said before, they always had the feeling of being involved, and they had the feeling of being heard, and hopefully also of being understood. And I think that's maybe the biggest learning that actually everyone can think about. If you use these methods and if you use design in that way, to design, to shape collaboration, it's really helpful to engage with each other. It's a new way, or probably not even that new, but a way to engage with your people, and it's also not only for us from the outside to learn about something within another company, but also for the people within the company to understand each other and to get to know each other better. I said before, it's not me, not at all, but also not just us from the Design and Co-Innovation Center working on this project. There are many, many people involved, and even more people involved on the customer side, as I said, the users and the workshop participants. Yeah, just to give them credit, because actually that's also one thing that is a little bit strange. I had a lot of discussions also with my design colleagues. It's strange. Designers, at least in Germany, are usually trained also a little bit in this mindset of the artist who goes to his art studio, creates this magic, and then comes back and shows it to the customer. And we were always showing these unfinished things. We were showing pictures of Post-its or just Post-its. And it was really sometimes also difficult to say, hey, we don't have to make this extra hour till tomorrow morning to make it all shiny, because it will be thrown away tomorrow probably. We just have to make it in a way that the user and the people understand what we're doing. And at some point, of course, you also have to make it shiny, but you have to really spend your time wisely and think about when is it time for shiny things and when is it time for dirty things, so to speak. I learned today, this morning, that I'm actually doing the right thing, because after 2 years you get paid 50% less, I've heard. So unfortunately, actually I really have to say unfortunately, this is my last day at SAP, my last gig. Not because I don't like the company or not because I don't like the team, the opposite is true. But I'm moving to India with my wife, who's going to be a diplomat there. So if you have any projects in India, I'm happy to help. But if you want to get in contact with the DCC and the team, it's best to contact my 2 colleagues who were involved in the project, Karen or Thomas. And yeah, I hope you enjoyed it a little bit, and thank you for being here.
We have time for questions.
Hello, thanks for sharing your experience. Stefan Kohn, my name, from Deutsche Telekom. I have basically two questions. One, a quick one. How big is your design team in terms of how many people are working in those 3 locations or 4 locations you mentioned? And the second one, can you give us a little bit more insight in how this project relates in your overall ambition to create a design-driven company out of SAP? Because whenever I look at an SAP interface, I don't feel a design-driven company. So is that basically, now it's project by project? Do you do similar projects for your standard products, or how does it relate? Mm-hmm. Thank you.
So first question, it's something like 60 people. There's actually right now, as we speak, there's a 4th location coming up in Korea, another so-called app house with, I think, something like 5 or 6 people coming there. And the relation, as I said before, is maybe 1/4 facilitators, 1/4 program managers from SAP background, and half like actual designers. The second question, yes, SAP has really, that's really an important thing. SAP has very much understood the challenge that all these things like Apple, Amazon, eBay, and so on pose to us. I mean, if you go to Amazon, you click 3 times and you have your book. If you try something similar within an SAP internal store, it can be that you, I have to be a little bit careful, it can be that it takes a little bit longer, or you have to get trained before. SAP has understood this, but SAP, of course, is a huge company. So there is a lot of efforts going on different areas. So on the one hand, maybe if you know SAP a little bit, you have heard about Fiori, which is a new, I would call it a framework, a design framework that is applied now to all SAP products. Even this, what you saw before, is based on the Fiori principles, let's say. So that's one thing. But one thing that is also true for SAP, it's a very decentralized company. It's not that we do have a CDO, we do have a chief design officer, but it's not that he says, you do this now, and everyone does it. It's much more organic, let's say. So it's quite some time that it takes. And what I had to learn also when I joined SAP is that most, or I cannot even say the number, but a lot of the screens that you see when you look at SAP screens are actually created by either partner companies or by the customer themselves, the IT organizations. And one of our missions also is to train other companies, to help them to learn these methods, to understand, to embrace this mindset also. But it's still a long way to go, of course. Yeah, maybe if that answers your question.
So before I ask my question, I should probably remind you I'm from Toyota. On day one of the assignment when SAP went into AMG, how did AMG define the project in terms of its objectives, and how did they define the milestones and the measures of success to appeal to top management support along the way?
So, as I said before, there are many different teams within SAP using design thinking. And before us, so to speak, there were other people also involved who were more like moderators in terms of helping the management and the IT organization at AMG to build like a project plan. And they had they came up with the name for the project, which is Route 601, the route to the future, more or less. 601 is the number of the production site in Affalterbach, where AMG is located. But they also came up with what we always called in the project the washing machine, which was a process picture of different phases that should be tackled, let's say, after each step. This was our guideline or our boundary that we had to deal with. Actually, because we were allowed to do all this research and we were allowed to go so deep with the actual stakeholders, we found out that, for example, one milestone, if you want to call it that was almost last, had to be implemented even before the whole thing started, because in order to create a software that really helps the user, you needed a specific definition of specific parts and so on. And they wanted to do it all afterwards, but then we changed it and we said we have to do it before. So actually it was not a living document in the sense that we really changed it, but it was boundaries that we could also together again stretch a little bit.
Any other question? I actually have one. It's maybe complicated to be answered, but what level of specificity in the solution you found did you have, and what is replicable in terms not even of process, but in terms of solutions? The CEO of AMG talked about something that could impact the whole automotive industry. Yeah. To what extent is this true, and how much can you take it out for another automotive client?
That's actually, I mean, from our perspective, it would be nice to use this again for other projects or other use cases, of course. The project is, as we speak, is still going on. So that's actually why Sabina is not here today, because there's a sprint change on Monday, and since it's the short week, so she has to be in Affalterbach right now, or maybe even in Walldorf. So it's still going on, and right now we are just building this and we're creating this. But then what happens afterwards, I think, is still very open, and it will be decided when it's all done and when they use it and when they have their thing. And actually, also, I'm not an expert in legal things, so there are probably some things to discuss there as well.
Any last question? All right, thank you again.
Thanks.